Let's be honest, Auburn football's 2021 season was not ideal. And if we're going to take a full and retrospective look of the 2021 season, we need to be able to look at the losses and reconcile with them. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to rank the losses. Yes, this video will bring the pain, and I'm sure some opposing fans will have fun with it, but we're still going to do it anyway with a smile. Welcome to the E2C Network, where the Auburn family speaks. Our content here and on our podcast network may tend to be Auburn sports heavy, but if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our content, and thank you to members of our booster club like David Wells, who help produce videos like this. As I had mentioned many weeks ago, we were going to start a series of videos where we analyzed and ranked Auburn's wins and losses, and maybe even gone into the best and the worst games. We've previously done a video about ranking all the wins. Now, there weren't many to talk about compared to the losses, but we still did anyway, and if you'd like to check that out, that link will be available for you. Now, we did have to take a little bit of a break from this series because things got a little bit crazy in the offseason, and the offseason is still young, let's be honest, things can still happen, but it does certainly feel now with the Bryan Harsin situation kind of behind us that we can take a step forward and kind of complete some of these retrospective looks on the season as a whole. And to be honest, we have to take a look in at ourselves and actually talk about the losses as well. Yes, it will be painful. And again, those of you that are opposing fans that are here just relishing in our misery, you're welcome. But we're still going to do this anyway because I think it'll help us kind of put everything to bed and just talk about it one last time. So here is how this video is going to go. We're going to rank all 7 losses for the Auburn's 2021 season on a scale of 1 to 7. 1 being the worst, the one that brings the most pain, all the way down to 7, which might have been at least somewhat respectable, even if it was a loss. So that's how things are going to go, and at the end of this, we'll hear from you and see what you think, if you agree with me or not on how I ranked them. Number 7, Penn State. This was Auburn's first loss of the season, and actually probably its most respectable loss when you compare things at the time of this loss, but also at the full context of the season. They looked pretty good on the biggest stage in a whiteout, playing the Nittany Lions, and a lot of the pollsters didn't even drop them that far after this loss because they were impressed with the potential of what Auburn looked like it could become. Like I said, it was a very intense environment for a team under a new coach and new schemes on both sides of the ball. They went up there and competed and were in a position to win the game on the biggest stage with the eyes of college football upon them. It was a much different time in the 2021 season, which is why you have to put this at number 7 as probably the least of the losses that we're upset about. Number 6, Houston. This one's a little bit fresh because this was the bowl game in our backyard of Birmingham, Alabama. Now, the reason that I've ranked this so low in the most pain that it brings in terms of losses is because of the context of the situation. Auburn had been through one of the worst stretches in its history in terms of just games within a season at the conclusion of this game. And so the Houston was almost the cap on all that. So it was almost like, well, we've been through it all anyway. What's one more loss on top of it? But also what they had been through in losing players such as Bo Nix for the rest of the season and everything else that had been going on at the start of a very tumultuous offseason. You kind of understand, well, this is what happens, but it's still disappointing. It was the final second half collapse that had been happening through the last part of the 2021 season, so it doesn't make it any less frustrating, but because of everything else that had been going on, this kind of just felt like a drop in the bucket as opposed to what else had been going on with the program, which is why it's ranked so low. Number 5, Alabama. This is probably the most impressive loss of the Auburn Tigers when you talk about context of the situation. I know I just kind of said something similarly about Penn State at number 7, but this one, nobody gave Auburn a chance. At least with the Penn State game, everybody thought it was going to be a great game and probably thought Penn State was favored to win because it was at their place. But with Auburn being at home, even being the magic of the Iron Bowl, nobody gave Auburn a chance. And for literally a few seconds left in the fourth quarter, Auburn was in position to win this game. So in that way, in that context of that specific game, you have to say this is the most impressive showing a loss because of what they almost pulled off. But it hurts more, doesn't it? Because it's our biggest rival. It also hurts more because it was yet another collapse in the second half or fourth quarter that had become a trend at that point to your biggest rival. So for that reason, because it was such an impressive showing for Auburn, you have to rank it a little bit lower in the list, but you have to move it up just slightly because of how much it hurt. Number 4, let's keep the pain going, Georgia. We're just going to talk about the rivals here. Now, this one falls right in the middle of the 7 losses, mainly because we all know now that Georgia is the national champions of college football for 2021. With that in mind, it makes sense with what happened to Auburn on their home turf against Georgia. They were really not in the game past the first quarter and even the second half at this point. They were not in the game really beyond the first quarter and even really into the second half. Georgia was dominating Auburn on all fronts, and it didn't really seem like Auburn could get any traction, which now makes sense in the full context of what this team was actually able to accomplish. It is disappointing, though, because there was a lot of hype on this season. There was the statue unveilings, it's a rivalry game, shirtless Bruce Pearl. All of that made it a little bit disappointing because of the excitement there was around this game, but now, in the full context of everything, it kind of makes sense. Number 3, Texas A&M. Now, this one you have to talk about the previous game before it, because Auburn looked good against Ole Miss at home, and everybody thought that was going to be the turning point of the season, where they really turned on a switch and could have a very strong finish. Not an undefeated stretch. Nobody was going to think that was going to happen, but they thought they would at least have a strong finish to the season. Well, fell flat on their face with the offense that looked so good against Ole Miss falling completely on their face, and Bo Nix even not having one of his best games of the season. It also began a streak of 5 fourth quarter or second half collapses, with Auburn not being able to score really anything in the second half at all. Very disappointing, and what it led to for the rest of the season is why I've ranked this one so high. Number 2, South Carolina. It's South Carolina. Do I need to say any more? We lost to South Carolina. No offense, Gamecock fans, but I don't think even you all thought that you were going to win this one. The big thing for this is this was a very emotional game for Auburn because they got embarrassed in the 2020 season, the weird season that everybody had to go through. And it's probably what ultimately got Coach Malzahn fired, falling to a team they shouldn't have no business losing to with the talent that they had on the squad for him. Again, it was another second half, fourth quarter collapse where they could not get anything going on offense and put the game away. So with the embarrassing nature of the team you lost to, the trend that had been happening, this one is just really painful, and it was the first game completely without Bo Nix and TJ Finley having to step up and try to piece things together for the offense. You can't really fault him for that, but still doesn't make it any less disappointing, which is why it brings the pain at number 2. And number 1, you all knew it was coming, Mississippi State. Let me just put this into perspective for you. Auburn in the first half, running away with this thing, looking like it was just going to dominate. 28-10, I believe the score was. I was at this game, and I remember turning to my friend who was sitting next to me and saying, well, this is about to get really bad for Mississippi State, and it feels real good, doesn't it? Well, then the second half happened. 33-6 was the score margin in Mississippi State's favor. Completely embarrassing on your home field. Should never, ever happen. The defense, embarrassing. The offense, just as embarrassing, if not worse. It was probably one of the biggest collapses that I've ever witnessed as an Auburn Tiger. So that's why this one comes up to number 1. And let's also talk about this. It's where we lost Bo Nix. And if you are... And no matter where you're at on the scale of whether you like Bo Nix or not, you have to be honest and admit things got a lot worse when we didn't have him at the helm. I don't really want to talk about it much more because it's making me mad just sitting here thinking about it, but I think we'll all agree with this one. Mississippi State was by far the worst loss of the 2021 season. So that is my rankings. All 7 losses from the least bad to the completely, utterly embarrassing as we just got done talking about. I want to know from you now in the comments section below. Do you agree with my ranking? Would you switch things around a little bit? Some of your perspectives on those games. And look, I know the comments aren't going to be that fun because this isn't really that fun of a topic, but I think we have to be honest with ourselves and talk about what happened and what went wrong, obviously within the context of the game, for the whole season, which is important to do that just so that we're not ignoring the facts of what happened. Looking forward to hearing your discussion in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this type of content, please do help support it by smashing that like button. And if you want more content from us, be sure to hit the subscribe along with the notification bell so you never miss any uploads or live streams. There's ways to help support our content listed in the description of this video, such as joining the E2C Network Booster Club at patreon.com or hitting that join button here on YouTube to be part of our channel membership program. Thank you for tuning into the E2C Network, where the Auburn family speaks. War Eagle.